Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us as we celebrate the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan. A celebration of hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping and all things outdoor related, all things conservation related, all things wildlife related. Oh, I get so... Listen, I've been doing this for a long time, and I am still as excited to walk into this studio every week as if I was a young, beginning broadcaster. It is truly a blessing to be able to do something that I love so much. It is truly a blessing to be able to talk about and promote and report on this wonderful outdoor lifestyle that many of us are just so absolutely addicted to. It's part of our history and tradition here in the great state of Michigan. It's part of who we are for many of us. It comes down to the family level. My granddad hunted and fished. My dad hunted and fished. He taught me how to hunt and fish. I hunt and fish. My son hunts and fishes. My grandkids hunt and fish. So what is that? Grandpa, dad, me, son, grandkids. There's 5 generations right there. In my own family, there are 5 generations of people who love the outdoors. And I'm just one person. There are a lot of us across the state. And the fact that you are hearing my voice right now does mean a lot to me. I do certainly appreciate it. So what has happened since we've last talked? Well, it's been an interesting week. There's been quite a bit going on. For one thing, where am I going to start here? Well, I had to buy my hunting and fishing licenses in preparation for my turkey hunt and in preparation for a day on the river, the Detroit River, with Lance Valentine. So I got my licenses and I bought an all-species fishing license, a base license, a combo deer tag that I will never, ever fill. I haven't punched a deer tag in Michigan in probably 15 years. Maybe someday I'll actually shoot a deer here, but I'll never use the second tag. And I bought my turkey tag. And it cost me $91 for all of those licenses. So for the entire year, I can hunt and fish for $91. That's 25 cents a day. What else can you do for 25 cents a day? Nothing. What else can you do that is as much fun as hunting and fishing? Nothing. Nothing, not for 25 cents a day. So for those people who gripe about the price of our hunting and fishing licenses, I say you need a reality check. Oh, I can't afford it. Well, then you know what? Don't smoke as many cigarettes. Don't drink as much beer. Take some of those pop and bottle cans and beer cans back. Oh, I have a big family. Well, okay. You knew when you made a big family, you were going to have some expenses. And, Avery, there you go, Avery, you're being an elitist again. You got lots of money. We don't have money. I don't have lots of money. But for me, hunting and fishing is a priority. I make it a priority. When I hear somebody say, I think those licenses are too much, I'm going to stop hunting or fishing, which is absolutely your right. It's a free country, at least for a little while longer, so you have the right to decide not to do something. But if you decide to quit hunting or fishing because you think those licenses are too expensive, maybe it wasn't a priority in the first place, and obviously it's not a priority now. For me, it's a priority. Remember back when we had movie theaters and you could take your family to the movies? I would take my grandkids to a 3-hour movie and pay more between pop and drinks and the movie tickets. I would pay more for a 2-hour movie, actually, than what I'm paying to hunt or fish for the entire year. And every year when I bring this up, I get a lot of grief from people saying, well, you don't understand. I have a bunch of kids, so it costs me more. I get that. You know, remember several years ago when it used to be your wife could fish on your license? How sexist is that? That your wife, your spouse, isn't her own person? She doesn't need her own license. She can fish on yours? Well, that was wrong from the beginning. So, yes, now your spouse has to get her own license, which is the way it should be. Big deal. If you're going to be out there and enjoy what we have to offer, somebody's got to pay for it, and it's us as the hunters and anglers. It's not the kayakers. It's not the Tweety Bird watchers. It's us. The kayakers and the Tweety Bird watchers benefit from what we do, but we are the ones who pay for conservation, wildlife enforcement, all those good things. And I'm happy to do it. I'm proud to do it. $91, and I can hunt or fish for. Go back just to fishing alone. $26 for an all-species 365-day fishing license. What else out there is a better deal than that? I said, nothing. So I was happy to pay it. So I got my licenses, again, in preparation for turkey season and in preparation for fishing on the Detroit River with Lance Valentine. Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand and I were scheduled to go down there. I told you about this last week, just an update. We did not go. Lance texted me that morning and said, hey, the weather is bad. Well, we knew it was bad. We can deal with bad weather. But he said the fishing is very, very slow right now. He says, you guys come down, I'll take you fishing, we'll have a good time. Or he says, I've got an opening a couple of weeks down the road, your choice. I talked with Nick and we said, let's push it back a couple of weeks. Maybe the weather will be better and maybe the fishing will be better. And then there's turkey season. You know I love chasing those goofy birds. Oh, what is it about those things that is just so addicting, so frustrating, so rewarding, so much fun, so humbling? I told you my 2 spots that I had planned on hunting. We thought the birds had disappeared. One of them, my buddy Scott's place, he had been out of state. He was turkey hunting out west, but he'd been watching his trail cameras. They said, we have no birds. I said, okay, no problem. I'll go to my buddy Doug's place. Well, we'd been keeping an eye on Doug's place, and the birds there had just disappeared. Okay, I got my 3rd spot. I'll go to my buddy Gene's place. I have good friends. I am blessed with good friends. Where we deer hunted last fall, I knew there were birds on that property. I just didn't know where. I didn't know where they were roosting. So I set up that Wraith 270 see-through ground blind, and I set it up at Gene's recommendation over on the east side of the property. Just kind of, I set up the blind in the blind, pun intended. Got out there Saturday morning, and it was cold, but it was beautiful, and the birds fired up at 6:15 in the morning. Oh, my goodness. I got goosebumps right now just thinking about it. Now, I don't know exactly how far away they were from me. They were straight north, maybe, 200 yards? They weren't going to fly down into my decoy, that's for sure. They gobbled hard on the roost. They hit the ground, they shut up a little bit, then they started to gobble again, and they gobbled hard for a couple of hours. Oh, my goodness, I love that. I absolutely love that. I could not bring them into me. At least I didn't think so. About 2 hours into the morning, maybe mid-morning, maybe 10 o'clock. So that's 4 hours into the morning. I got to be honest. Here's what I was doing. One of the reasons I enjoy turkey hunting is I can smoke a cigar in the blind, and the birds do not get spooked by cigar smoke. So I look up, okay, I scan both ways. There's nothing there at all. I get myself out a cigar, and I light it up. I'm going, right? I'm getting a good flame on this thing. And then the whole blind is just full of blue smoke. But this thing is going to burn for a while now. And that's how I'm going to finish out my morning. So I get the thing lit, and I look up, and there are 7 jakes surrounding my decoy at 8 yards away. They didn't make a sound. They came in quiet. Oh, my goodness. And they were, listen, from ground level at 8 yards, jakes look huge. Now, a jake is a male bird. It's not an adult bird. It's like a spike, right? It is a legal target, but some people look down on them because they don't have a big full beard. But keep in mind, I've got a recurve bow in my hands, and my accuracy and my distance are limited because of that. It's not like shooting a crossbow at 30 yards. I'm shooting a recurve at 10 yards. And I got 7 jakes in my decoy. Charlie, I'm not through telling the story. What are you doing hitting the music? Long story short, I passed on the jakes. I hunted again that Sunday night because Doug had heard a bird gobble behind his house. Nothing. I hunted Monday morning. Nothing. Tuesday morning, I didn't hunt. Wednesday morning, I'm here in the studio. Tomorrow morning, I'll be back out in the woods. I'll give you an update on that next week. Coming up after the break, Lance Valentine of Walleye 101 checks in from the Detroit River, then Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews, and a whole bunch of other topics coming up this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. All right, Charlie, I think I'm ready. Actually, I'm not ready. I don't know what's going on with the show this week, but I am so discombobulated. Hey, this segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by a new company that I'm working with, and I couldn't be more excited. It's Rapid River Knife Works, rapidriverknifeworks.us. I've been trying to get a partnership going with Chris Durson for the longest time because I love their products. They're a family-owned, Michigan-based company, and you know I love that. And a knife is something that most of us carry and use every day. I've got a knife in my pocket right now, and I bet you 3 or 4 times a day I reach for it, and you probably do the same. So why not have it be a Michigan-made, family-owned company like Rapid River Knife Works? We will be talking more with Chris. We will be getting to know his products. I'll have him on the Wednesday Night Lives, maybe do some joint promotions with some other companies you are familiar with. But in the meantime, head to the website, rapidriverknifeworks.us, and check them out, rapidriverknifeworks.us. While you are online, I would ask you to go to my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and head on over to walleye101.com. Walleye101.com is one of the online presences of the man himself, Lance Valentine, Captain Lance Valentine of Walleye 101 and Teaching Fishing. I told you in the first segment, Nick Grillo of Michigan Brand and I were supposed to fish with Lance last week. I got a text from Lance in the morning. He said, hey, 2 things. He said, the weather's terrible and the fishing's even worse. Well, we can deal with bad weather, but I didn't know if I wanted to make a 2-hour drive down there to struggle. When Lance said, I got an opening a couple of weeks later, do you want it? We said, we will absolutely take it. But I got thinking, I've heard nothing but similar reports from everybody on the river this year, the Detroit River, that it's very, very slow. And I thought it would be, if Lance was interested and available, an interesting conversation to bring him in and ask him why. And guess what? He's here with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Lance, welcome back. How are you? You're pretty quiet this morning, Lance. There we go. We didn't have you punch. How are you, Lance?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. Are you on the water right now?
Actually, I fished yesterday morning, and I think I'm still cold from that.
Oh man, I bet.
We got snow down there. It was snowing pretty hard yesterday, so I canceled yesterday afternoon. It's about 26 degrees down there today. So I came home. I've been down there since April 5th. So I actually came home last night. I'm home for today to kind of get caught up in the office, and I'll go back and we'll start fishing again Thursday. But I'm actually at home in the office, taking a day off and getting caught up on stuff that doesn't stop just because I go fishing.
Well, good for you. But listen, Lance, what's going on with the action down there this spring? Everybody's crying a tale of woe.
So I've got some good news and some bad news. The good news is this: the fishing actually busted loose yesterday.
Good.
We had a decent morning. A couple guys fished in the afternoon, and they did really, really well. The fish are showing back up where they should be. We've got a late April full moon this year, and that's really weird. That full moon has a lot of influence on spawn time and spawn activity and when fish come up the river. And, our last full moon was late March. That's when we saw all these, really good catches from Detroit. And now we don't get a full moon again until I think, early middle of the week next week. So we've got a late April full moon this year, and fishing is now starting to kind of crank up a little bit as of yesterday. But in the meantime, man, it was absolutely terrible. Frustrating thing was we were seeing fish on our side scans. They just didn't want to bite. So, and it's not, we've got 15 or 16 charter captains in our marina, and, guys would go out and one trip they'd get 12, and the next trip they'd go out and get 3, and then you go out again and get 15, and you go out and get 2. You could just never, ever get anything consistent in the same place at the same time, same depth of water. There was just no consistency to the fishing, and that makes it tough when when you're trying to pattern fish, you have some knowledge of what should happen. And after 3 or 4 guesses, you're like, no, I don't even know where to even start. So you got to kind of control out, delete some days, and start over at 9:30, 10 o'clock, and kind of start making some decisions. So the fishing was really it was a grind, and it wears on you as a charter captain. It wears on you. You do the best you can. You entertain your customers. You have a good day, but when fishing's tough, it can definitely wear on you. So. Ergo, we canceled your trip and moved your trip a little bit later, but it has been a tough spring for just about everybody that's down there.
I think anybody who has fished with you is going to say, when I fish with Lance, catching fish is just a bonus because it's the time on the water with you. It's the on the water seminar. I think that people get as much out of it as catching a few fish.
And that's something we can control, right? I can control my dad taught me this a long time ago. I can control my attitude and I can control my effort. Anything else than that, really, when you're fishing or hunting, is out of your control. So I control my effort, I control my attitude, and you're right. We've got, most of our guys rebook every year, and that's been consistent this year. They've rebooked, for next year. A lot of our guys are excited about going on the Angler Quest and fishing Saginaw Bay, so they've booked some summer trips. So, that is a good sign that we are providing a good product, even though the fishing is tough. And again, that's what a guide can control. I can control my attitude and my effort. I can't control the fishing or the weather. And if I could, nobody can afford me if I can make the fish bite on nice days.
If you could make fish bite on demand, you'd be doing something even greater than what you are right now.
Exactly. So it's been a struggle. Now, one thing that happened yesterday, and I actually sent Ali Shakur a message this morning. I said, we need to talk. Something happened yesterday, and I was at dinner with a couple of captains yesterday afternoon, and we got talking about it. We had a couple days this year in Detroit, which were really rare. You actually had to pull yourself down current to go. The current actually had slowed down. Yesterday, the current was ripping. I mean, it was ripping faster than I've ever seen the Detroit River go. No rain, no wind to speak of to move the current the way it was going, but it was ripping harder than I've ever seen it before last year. And coincidentally, we get this heavy current, and now the fish start biting. So I don't know what caused that phenomenon, but we've had 2 days already this year where I'm like, man, the current just doesn't feel. It almost felt Saginaw River speed, which is really slow compared to Detroit. Mm-hmm. So we were all talking about that last night, and then yesterday the current was absolutely ripping, and the fish bit. So I don't know where that correlation is. Ali probably has a much better grasp on that than I do. But the current ripping really brought those fish on. And I think, we've been catching fish down at the south end of the river, right where it comes, where it comes into Lake Erie or starts or dumps into Lake Erie. We're catching fish down there. And I think those fish have finally, after 4, 5, 6, 7 days, made their way up to the Middle River. And I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that this is kind of the signal of the rest of the year being normal.
I got to go back to this full moon because I hear about a full moon when I'm hunting, when I'm fishing. Yep. I mean, how does that impact the fish? And do we want a full moon or do we not want a full moon? I know when I'm hunting, especially bear hunting, I do not like a full moon.
Correct. So spawning time, full moon is a trigger. So there's multiple triggers to spawn time. Water temperature being one, but water temperature definitely not being the only and definitely not being the main. Length of daylight is huge. and the moon phase is huge. There's a lot of the spawning activity happens 2 or 3 days before or after the full moon. The full moon is a huge trigger to fish to procreate, to spawn. It's a big factor of bringing them shells. It's a big factor of getting into spawn. It's a big trigger to say, okay, now is the time. So I don't know what that is. Obviously, we have some kind of tidal influence in freshwater, not like we do in saltwater, but there definitely is some kind of pull to the full moon. Records indicate that a high percentage of record fish are caught 2 days before or after the full moon. That's definitely true. So there's something about it, especially around spawn time, that creates an activity level in the fish that says, go, 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 and let's get rolling. So I don't know exactly what it is. That's above my pay grade. But I do know that my records and records of lots of other people say that spawning definitely increases and kind of peaks around the full moon periods, and fish activity absolutely, especially walleye activity, peaks around both sides of a full moon, especially in cold water, spring and fall.
I heard a lot of talk online too about the water color was off.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
So the water is extremely clear in Detroit. We've always said, we said them all times on your show, don't fish the blue water, don't fish the brown water, find the green water. And that holds true no matter where you fish. There's not a lot of green water on the Detroit River right now. A lot of it is blue. A lot of it is too clear. And even the green water doesn't have any stain to it. It's clear green. Clear water is not good. We've had guys go to smaller jigs. We've had guys put on leaders. That still hasn't worked. Clear water fish can see too far. Bait kind of react differently because they can see the fish coming at them, so they stay away. So a lure actually coming towards the fish in really, really clear water is not natural. We need a little bit of stain in the water. And remember, Detroit doesn't get dirty from things that happen on the rivers to the Detroit River. Detroit gets dirty when all the farmland is drained on the east side of Lake St. Clair, and then we get an east or northeast wind blows all of that mud over to the middle of St. Clair, and then that dirt comes down the American side of the river. And we have had none of that. Our winds have been southwest, west, northwest consistently. So any chance we have of getting dirty water is actually being blown over to the Canadian side and kept over there. We have no way to get that dirt and that color over to us. So when you can find a little bit of stain, a little sandy area, a little silty area that gets a little bit of wind into it, downriver from that where the water's a little dirty, that's where the good fishing has been. But the water clarity is definitely an issue. We had the fish hawk out the other day. It was 47 degrees at the surface. We dropped the fish hawk down because you're literally bringing your jig in, and your jig is cold to your touch. We put the fish hawk down at the bottom. It was 39.5 degrees at the bottom, 47 at the top. So when guys say, oh, it's 47 degrees, it's ready to go, well, down the bottom 15 feet where the fish are, it's not 47 degrees. So, and a lot of that is St. Clair. St. Clair is really clear because there's no dirt. Clear water does not hold heat. So the water washes through the Detroit River in about 30 hours, so there's no warm water coming to the bottom of the Detroit River to warm the river up because there's no color in St. Clair or Huron to get warm. It's just a big, giant stack of bad things on top of bad things on top of bad things. So we're kind of hoping, this full moon is kind of the trigger and the fish get here and we can start catching some fish.
You said there was some color over on the Canadian side. Of course, you can't fish over there this year.
Correct, and that's the other thing too. Right? So boat pressure is at least twice as much. A lot of people are fishing. A lot of people aren't working. A lot of people have more free time than they ever had. So the river is more crowded. Everybody's over here. No one can go over to Canada, which we traditionally do. First 2 weeks of April and the last 2 weeks on there in May are traditionally all Canada fishing. We don't do any fishing on the U.S. side because the fishing is much better over there that time of year. We can't go over there. There's more pressure. It's just been a tough year to get anything consistently going.
The perfect storm of bad weather or of bad news.
But you know what? A couple of years ago, we had the perfect storm. We had lots of big fish. We had perfect weather. We had the perfect water clarity. The fish showed up on time, and we absolutely, stacked them in our live wells as fast as we could. So it's nature, it's fishing, it's hunting, it's cyclical stuff. It is, and you just got to work through it. And sometimes though, it honestly becomes frustrating because you're trying so hard.
Lance, hang tight. We've got to take a break. With Lance Valentine of Walleye 101, walleye101.com. More with Lance coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on WZTK in Alpena. That's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in St. Joe on 94.9 WSJM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in the Sioux on ESPN 1400 WKNW. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be going through the Sioux. Certainly not this year now. Does not look like we're going to be able to get into Canada for our hunting or fishing adventures for a while. Thank God we've got all these wonderful resources right here in Michigan. Talking now with Lance Valentine of Walleye 101 and Teaching Fishing. Lance, a good friend of mine, great guy, one of the most knowledgeable fishing educators you will ever meet. Lance, I want to take us off track here just for a second. I know you were listening to my Wednesday morning live here from the studio, and in the first segment of the show, I made some comments about the cost of hunting and fishing licenses. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, boy, Avery, you might have been a little bit too harsh. You're a man of reason. I want your thoughts on what we're paying for these licenses, and are they a good deal?
50 cents a week for some of the best fishing in the world. Yeah, I'll take that. I think our licenses are way too cheap. If you're like me, you've traveled around the country and you see the access places we have, even if you got to pay $7-8 for access, but you see the access points that we have, you see the fishing that we have, you see the quality of the areas that we get to fish, you see the cleanup that's been done around the places we get to fish. 50 cents a week is way too cheap for what we have here. We have some of the best fishing for any species. There's not a freshwater species that swims that you really can't say, I want to catch a trophy class, whatever, fill in the blank, that you can't catch it at the right place and right time here in Michigan. License fees, I think are too cheap. 50 cents a week. I mean, that's 7 cents a day. Driving around, pick up a pop can every day, you got your license. It doesn't cost you a penny, right? I mean, come on now. Like I told you on the live this morning, I buy a federal duck stamp, and I buy a deer license, and I buy a small game license every year. I have not had a gun in my hand other than a handgun at the range in 40 years. I don't hunt. I don't hunt. That's not what I do. But I spend the money on those licenses because the money needs to go to continue to support and create the opportunities that people that love the outdoors have. I think we as outdoorsmen are some of the most selfish people around. We look at our little thing. I only bass fish. I don't care about the walleye guys. I only walleye fish. I don't care about the muskie guys. Or I only squirrel hunt. I don't care about the deer guys. And we can't do that. We have to be together as a group. We have to support each other. And we have to, find a dollar here, a dollar there, or give up crap that doesn't help us, right? Fishing and hunting are good for the soul. Smoking, drinking, I don't want to get on my high horse either, but, we spend money on crap that absolutely hurts us and won't find money to do something that absolutely soothes and heals the soul. So there you go. Make up your mind. Do you want to be an outdoorsman or not?
You were talking about the cleanup of the waters. I mean, when you say the Detroit River is too clear for good fishing, and right now I've been hearing the same thing from my buddies on Saginaw Bay. Unfortunately, I haven't been out yet. Yep. They say you can see bottom in 15 feet of water, which is not what the bay is known for. That does make for some tough fishing, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Fish have great eyesight, especially walleyes. And again, as the water gets cleaner, walleyes have a huge advantage over prey in bad water, low light or dirty water. They have a huge advantage over their prey. Now, when the roles are reversed and prey can actually see the predator, prey stays away from the predator. So again, in clear water, a lure coming towards which a fish perceives as a bait fish, a lure coming towards a fish in clear water, they're like, that's not right. So it's definitely a bad thing, and a lot of that is zebra mussel. Obviously, we have some that's some issues. The zebra and the quagga mussels obviously create some things, but look at what we've done with cleaning up the water and the Clean Water Act and the EPA, and what Ducks Unlimited does with some of their farm bills, where they actually have guys now growing. They're actually paying people to grow buffer zones up against rivers and creeks to stop the stuff from going into these rivers and creeks that feed the phosphates into the lakes. Ducks Unlimited does a great job with that. Again, if you're a fisherman, you need to be a member of Ducks Unlimited because the things that they do affect you downstream from where they do their projects. That's all created better water. Sometimes better water is too clear for good fishing.
I know. I wouldn't know how to fish crystal clear water. I was talking to Jim Chamberlain here a couple of weeks ago, and he's actually going to be on the show later today again, too, but he was talking about, seeing the bottom in 30, 40 feet of water. I can't relate to that. Well, hopefully, by the time I finally get on the bay, it dirties up a little bit because I don't know how to fish clean water, clear water.
Right, and Jim's a great guy to talk to because he deals with that up there where he fishes all the time, that'd be a great conversation. I know Jim, and he's great fisherman, great guy, good guy, period. And he deals with that clear water a lot more than a lot of us do down here where we're traditionally stained water fisheries. So, I'd be interested to hear what he has to say about how he kind of handles his clear water problem.
And he's an Angler Quest guy, too, as well. And I find it encouraging when you say people book with you, they're excited to get out in the Angler Quest. It's nice to work with a company that has created such a buzz around the industry.
Angler Quest and Polar Craft. How many Polar Crafts have I seen on the Detroit River now? And, they've done. Those two companies have done a great job. And, it all goes back to leadership. It all goes back to management. It all goes back to having problems and handling the problems. It all goes back to the quality workmanship. It all goes back to just caring. And that's a huge thing.
Lance Valentine, always a pleasure. Nick and I think my son James he's off that day. I think we're going to come down and see you in a couple of weeks, and we'll see if we can't get into some of those fish down there.
Just make sure Nick brings some ham sandwiches.
Well, he'll be bringing some Mike Avery hunter sticks and some of those new honey barbecue sticks. We're gonna bring a feast on your boat. Lance Valentine of Walleye 101 and Teaching Fishing, a great guy. Check him out online. We'll take a break when we come back. Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews right here on Outdoor Magazine. Haven't checked in with him for a while. His website, woods-n-waternews.com. Mine, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK. That's 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron on WPHM 1380 AM. And let's go to Traverse City, WTCM 580 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. For more info, check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com, linwoodbeachmarina.com. The ramps are open. They're busy as can be at Linwood Beach right now. They're getting boats out of storage. They're getting boats ready for the water. They're renting out slips right now. If you need work done on your boat, if you need something done to get ready for the summer season, if you're looking for a place to stay, Linwood Beach Marina and Campground, linwoodbeachmarina.com, online, linwoodbeachmarina.com. While you are online, I would encourage you to head on over to woods-n-waternews.com. That, of course, the website of Michigan's premier outdoor publication, Woods-n-Waternews. Tom Campbell, one of the guys behind it, and he joins us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Tom, welcome back. How are you? Are you staying warm, and did you get your bird yet?
Doing great, Mike. And I was wondering if you're going to throw in Linwood's got a little skim ice there, but we're okay. No, it's amazing, isn't it? You just love living in Michigan, so you can talk about the weird weather we have.
Oh, my goodness. I heard Charlie was talking to you, getting ready to go on the air. He says, last week we were getting sunburn, and this week we're putting our winter coats back on.
Exactly right. Isn't that something? And I'm not sure what happened to my birds, but there's somebody's telling them when I'm coming out there because they change their pattern real fast. But now I had a good weekend hunt and can't complain. Somebody got lucky because I heard a couple shots real close to me, so that's great, and we're all for it. But it plus, Mike, with 45 days to fill your tag, do you really want to do it the first weekend? So you got to stretch this out.
You must have
wonderful spring.
You must have hunt ZZ.
I did, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
What a great tag, I mean, if you got private land to hunt, it's wonderful because you've got so many opportunities. The only thing I know from last year, though, you got to watch out procrastinating because all of a sudden it's late May and you haven't been out there yet, So you do got to watch that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So what? Okay. So you're still working towards the big outdoor weekend. You're moving forward as if it is going to happen, I'm assuming.
Absolutely, Mike. Yeah, but we were just commenting, it's great to see the our vendors come back and they say, "Oh, looking so forward, can't wait. We missed it last year. Fingers crossed," and as we go along, 2 days you get great vibes from what's happening out there, and then you go through a week of, "Oh no, here we go again."
Yeah.
Cases up, talking about maybe partial shutdowns. So it's up and down and up and down, but we're just going to stay positive, keep focusing. We're coming up with some great new ideas for 2021, and that's just what we're going to do, and we'll wait to see what happens later this summer, and hopefully everything gets to a point where we got the virus under control and we can have a fairly normal outdoor weekend and kick off the fall of 2021 the right way.
Well, in the meantime, you've got this little thing called a monthly magazine to put out.
And we should, and hopefully people are finding their May issue in their mailbox or at their favorite newsstand right now. It's an extraordinary, beautiful cover. We think it's something unique for Woods-n-Waternews. It's actually a loon at sunset with her little baby on her back. So it's a fantastic shot. We got a photographer that's really provided us some great covers over the last couple of years, Joni Roberts. And in fact, it was a year ago. I'm not sure if you remember. Some of your listeners may remember a beautiful photo of fighting eagles on the cover, and she took those as well. And I think we followed that up with some beautiful horned owl photos from her too. But this loon shot at sunset is really beautiful. So hopefully it should catch your attention at least. But the inside is just loaded with great information. I mean, we've got, of course, we've got our turkey hunting along with our morels, along with fiddleheads. So a great, what a combination for May with all those three things happening. And you don't want to miss that. You want to catch up. And if you haven't heard a lot about fiddleheads, you'll want to make sure you get that May issue, because we got a new professor from U of M writing for us that writes on all those foraging that you can do in Michigan, and he wrote on fiddleheads this year, this month for the May issue, and it's interesting and exciting, and maybe a lot of your listeners haven't heard about him. So,
well, my listeners have, because Chef Dave Miner talks about using fiddleheads in springtime recipes all the time. But no, I think that's interesting. And you talk about the cover.
Absolutely.
Man, that cover is what gets people's attention, and you guys are known for some pretty beautiful covers.
Yeah, exactly right. We try to mix it up too. Although come fall, we love our deer photos. Just can't beat that. So, but yeah, you're absolutely right. And photography has come so far, and people are so good at it today with really minimal equipment. So that makes it a lot easier on us for sure. The days of having to go to a photographer
and process and all that stuff. It's a different world, but it's a better one.
Yeah,
Tom, always a pleasure.
Right,
we will keep our fingers crossed for that big outdoor weekend. In the meantime, go to the website woods-n-waternews.com and check out the May edition of Woods-n-Waternews on your local newsstand. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, Jim Chamberlain from Fish with Jim Outfitters, talking about the trout season opener. Amy Trotter of MUCC with some DNR budget details, and this week's Ask Avery segment. Why do I not like nightcrawlers? Well, that's not really the case, but we'll address that in hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. This is a radio show, first and foremost, produced, distributed, formatted, recorded as a radio show. And in my opinion, the best way to listen, if you can, is on your local AM or FM station. Because there you get your local news, weather, and sports. And the local stations get the content. They get the show before the podcast version is uploaded. But it's nice to have the podcast there. If you don't get all 3 hours of the show, or if you're local, if you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, you've always got the podcast. And the podcast is nothing more than the audio, the sound from the radio show made available somewhere other than on your local radio station. And where would you find it, you ask? Lots and lots and lots of different options. First place I would say you could go to is the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. MikeAveryOutdoors.com, a clearinghouse for all things outdoor magazine, radio, and Mike Avery Outdoors. I also put it on the Facebook page, the Mike Avery Outdoors Facebook page. I post it every Sunday evening at 6. You can find us on Amazon Music, on Audible now, which is very cool. I put it on my Avery Outdoors Twitter feed. It's on LinkedIn, iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Player FM, Deezer, Radio.com, and even YouTube. I know it's a radio show. Why would I put it on YouTube? But I get people who listen on YouTube, so I make it available there as well. Anywhere you get your podcasts from, you can hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. As long as I've got you, I also need to put a blatant plug in for the Outdoor Magazine Podcast Network. Each month, I produce podcasts for Jay's Sporting Goods, Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, Killer Food Plots, Polar Craft Boats, and Shadow Hunter Blinds. And in fact, as soon as we get done in the studio here with this week's radio show, I will record this month's Angler Quest podcast and this month's Shadow Hunter Blinds podcast. So it's a busy day here in the studio for me, but it's a good day because whenever I can be here talking about the outdoors, the history and tradition of, it's a wonderful blessing to me. And this weekend is kind of a big weekend in the Michigan outdoors, isn't it? I mean, it's the opening day of walleye season in the Lower Peninsula. Our friends in the UP have to wait a couple more weeks. Opening day of trout season statewide. Turkey season's going on. Pike season opens. I mean, it's just and I remember, boy, as a kid, this opening weekend of trout season was second only to the opening day of deer season. I mean, it was a big, big deal. We would start weeks in advance and go out on the rainy nights in the yard and over to the football field and over to the park picking up nightcrawlers. Remember that? Picking up nightcrawlers. What an adventure that itself was for a kid. That was almost as much fun as fishing itself. But I pick up these nightcrawlers, put them in these bins of bus bedding, and then I go down to the local creek. And I know it's creek, okay, but I've called it crick all my life, and it's going to be crick all my life. In my case, it was Cedar Creek. I grew up in Cedar Springs on the west side of the state, and there is still a little creek that runs through town. I doubt if any kids go down there and fish brook trout now, but back then that little creek was full of brook trout. I'd get my waders, and I'd go in there with my bait casting reel, and I'd drift these night crawlers down through the runs and through the holes and catch an awful lot of chubs and every once in a while a beautiful brook trout. 7 inches was the legal size. And if you got a 9-inch fish, it was a real trophy. But that's my frame of reference for trout fishing, and it was wonderful. A lot of people will be out there this year looking for walleye. I mean, the opening day of walleye season, too. It's a great time of year. We had Jim Chamberlain on the show here a couple of weeks ago. He's a Northern Michigan fishing guide. His website, fishwithjimoutfitters.com. And we were talking about some of the very cool, interesting, and unique fisheries that he trolls for from his angler quest. But he's also a river guide, and he seemed like the perfect guy to talk with about this opening weekend of trout season. And he's graciously agreed to join us once again. Jim, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing great, Mike. I'm patiently waiting for these dates to come up on the calendar here.
Oh, it's a great time of year, isn't it?
It is. It's there's a lot of like you mentioned in the opening. It's a pretty exciting weekend. Everybody gets to go out there and go after what they really like to do.
Well, and you, like me, are blessed to be doing this for a job. I mean, you got to love this, Jim, or you wouldn't be putting the hours into it that you do.
No, I do. I mean, it's really rewarding these days to watch somebody else accomplish the things that I've already accomplished. I mean, and especially with the trout fishing. I mean, I get to row a beautiful raft down the river and watch guys make lots of mistakes throwing things into the trees. And so we learn. We've all done it.
We've all done it.
Oh yeah, with spatial awareness, we call it spatial awareness training. So we go through that, especially on the Jordan where we fish. There's a lot of overhanging trees and a lot of fun obstacles a lot of things you have to overcome to get the trout to bite and also to get them in the boat. There's just that river's full of wood, so it's a challenge, and I think that's really what most guys like about the trout fishing. You know, it's not a give me when you go out there. It's you got to put your work in, and you got to have tenacity.
Are we talking fly fishing, Jim, or something else?
No, I do. I don't do any fly fishing. A lot of my friends do. They'll start their mousing trips and their streamer trips coming up here. But I do a lot of casting with plugs, and we do a little bit of worm dunking. I take my kids up to the upper Jordan, and we play with some of the smaller streams that dump in and catch small brook trout for them, you know, just to get them acclimated to things. And this is a good time to do it because you just don't have the bugs, like you do in the summertime.
Yeah. Actually, it's very refreshing to talk to someone who is a trout fishing guide who isn't a fly fishing guide, because, and I got nothing against fly fishing, but that seems to be kind of the holy grail when it comes to trout fishing, and that's what we think of. So to think of throwing spinners or plugs or dunking worms, that's refreshing. That gets right back to the basics.
It does, and, there's a lot of people that, don't really have anything against fly fishing. They just don't want to put the work into making that happen because, again, that is a skill. I mean, it's something that, you have to put a lot of work into. You got to know how to cast. You got to know how to, lay those presentations down correctly, especially on the dry fly side of it. That there's an art form to that, something that, just a guy who gets out 3 weekends a year, he just doesn't have the time to figure that out. So I still go after, that group of people because there's just not very many guys doing that.
Yeah.
Everybody's focused on the fly and, and there's still a big market for, people that just want to traditionally fish for those trout.
Jim, I think you are very, very good at seeking out and capitalizing on these niche fisheries. Good for you.
Yeah, that's something that I've really, figured out over the years. I've put my time in on the Great Lakes on some of the bigger boats, and I've played with the river thing on my own quite a bit. And I did start out as a fly fishing guide, but I quickly switched gears to that because when I was in Ohio, the center pin thing really, really caught on, and there was a very, very big need to teach people how to use those things.
Now, on your river trips, you mentioned a raft. Do you do any wading at all, or is it all from some kind of a boat?
We do most of it with the boat because, I want to have a controlled atmosphere because you just never know who's showing up. It could be a 75-year-old man who can't walk 4 miles, which, that's what it takes sometimes to make those trips happen.
Yeah, because you're going into some pretty, where we find trout is oftentimes in some pretty remote country.
It is, and it's cedar swamp where we're at. So there's, the ground is soft in a lot of spots, and then it's hard, and then you get used to the hard ground, you forget, and next thing you know, you're you step into a soft spot and you're up to above your knees and muck, and you're like, oh my God. As fun as that sounds, the raft kind of takes a little bit of that out. I do that with my kids just so they can experience it.
And when you talk about it, you're bringing back memories. I remember working my way through the tag alders and stepping in muck up to my knees and getting wet and it was just such an adventure.
Yeah, that's kind of what I look at trout fishing as. It's an adventure, and when you put in a raft and you float from one location to the other, it's not like you can backtrack. You're always looking forward down the stream. You're never looking behind you. You're not going to row back up the stream. We're not doing that, especially with with some weight in the boat. That's just not going to happen. We blow a spot. My teaching skills come into play. I kind of tell the guys how they missed it, and I explain to them there's going to be several more spots coming up like this, and then we try to capitalize on those spots, as the trip progresses. And typically by the end of it, the guys get it, and if they fish 2 days, day 2 always goes better than day 1.
Oh, well, we hope so, at least. We're talking with Jim Chamberlain of Fish with Jim Outfitters, fishwithjimoutfitters.com, talking about this opening weekend of trout season here in Michigan. It's an exciting time of year. Jim has some unique skills, and I want to talk with him more about that. First, we got to take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. We'll come back, wrap up our conversation with Jim Chamberlain. Then Amy Trotter of MUCC will join me, and we'll wrap up the hour with this week's Ask Avery segment. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Caro on WKYO. That's 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. And let's go to Marquette, WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG, as it's called, is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website, MUCC.org. That's MUCC.org. Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC, will be joining me here in just a few minutes to talk about some things going on with the DNR's budget. Speaking of MUCC, though, it was time to renew my membership. And I did that this past week. I went to the website, MUCC.org, and I used my own promo code. Promo code Mike, all caps, and I saved 25%. I know, it's completely legit, right? I shouldn't feel like I did something wrong. So to make up for it, I actually made a donation above and beyond, just to feel like, okay, I'm helping the cause here. But I can tell you for a fact, the promo code Mike, all caps, does work, and you will save 25% on your MUCC membership. Either your first time up or your renewal. How cool is that? Speaking of cool things, this weekend is the trout season opener statewide. It's the opening day. It's a walleye opener in the Lower Peninsula. Jim Chamberlain from Fish with Jim Outfitters, fishwithjimoutfitters.com, will be out there chasing trout this weekend. Jim, brookies, browns, what are you going to be after?
We're going to target more browns. The Jordan's blessed with some really nice ones. We've caught a few this week, while we're steelhead fishing.
I saw the picture you sent me. You will not see a more beautiful brown trout than that picture was.
No, and that wasn't even a big one that compared to what we get in there. I mean, we had one last year with Wes Brubaker caught one that was 30 inches.
Wow!
And it was a river brown. It's not it was one that a couple of my fly fishing buddies caught several times over the summer on mouse patterns as well. So. I'd say there's a lot of them that are 24 to 27 in there, and they're fun. I mean, they kind of remind me more of a pike or a muskie than a trout. They're extremely territorial. We caught 7 of them last season on the figure 8 pattern at the boat. Oh, come on! I've never heard of such a thing. It's crazy. They come right out of the brush. You just dip the rod tip in the water, and you just do the figure 8, and they take that thing right to the boat. They're so aggressive. Wow. This year is going to be a little different for us, though. Because the DNR did not do a steelhead egg take last year, because of COVID. So there's no smolts to put in, and I really think that was a very, very, very big food source of those fish in the Jordan, and we were fishing with a lot of rainbow trout looking lures, spinners, Rapalas, different things like that. And I'm not sure that pattern is going to present itself like it did. And I think we're going to have to do a lot of learning to see what those fish are going to be keyed in on this year a little bit more than the smolts.
How big of a river is the Jordan? How wide is it? It's just
it's narrow. It's it's 30 to 50 feet wide in most places. There are some spots that are wider than that, but but it's fast, which is what attracts me to it. It's not an easy river to trout fish. Not an easy river to wade. You can wade at the access points a little bit, but you're not going to get more than 400 or 500 yards away from the access points before you're like, yep, next access point, had enough of this.
and it always surprises me how these little trout streams, I mean, even much smaller than the Jordan, can produce some pretty big fish.
Yeah, and I think that has to do with, it seems like the ones that follow those attributes also have salmon in them too. And I think the food source is a lot greater in those streams that the salmon are in there. They come up there, they die, they drop eggs, and those fish feed on that stuff. So, where there's a lot of food, the fish get bigger.
So walk me through on a day on the river. You're drifting down through there in a raft. You got a guy or two with you. What are you throwing, and what kind of water are you looking for, and how are you working that water?
Well, it's what it reminds me of is casting at docks for bass in the small inland lakes. You just kind of go along the shore, except the dock is on both sides here. You're throwing at log jams. You're looking for water where there's a fast current, and then to the inside of the fast current, there's a slow, deep pocket. You whip it up in there, pull it out. Any kind of spinners work. Rapalas all the way from like size 5 to size 11, depending on what size bait fish you're seeing in there. It's a lot of matching the hatch. If you see small minnows, throw a small bait. You see a bunch of steelhead smolts, you're going to want to match the hatch to that because those browns eat those things.
Are there any brookies in there at all?
There are. You have to go up to the upper section, and most of that's walkable. It's a lot of worm dunking. It's a lot of the stream up there. The places that you target are maybe the width of a car, 8 to 10 feet. You're just looking for deep pockets, log jams, etc. But there are a lot of brook trout in that stream. I took the kids up in there last summer. And it must have been August, and I don't know, they caught 30 of them apiece.
Oh, jeez.
They were, 6 to 10 inches. And my son did catch a really good one, a 13-incher up there.
Wow.
But it looks like the rules are going to change there on the Jordan a little bit. Looks like it's going to go to a Type 3, which means there's going to be a 15-inch minimum size limit on those brook trout and browns both.
Well,
I believe
that's going to change things considerably.
Yeah, it could go one of two ways. That could create a better fishery, or it might not change anything at all. It just depends on what Mother Nature brings up in there. If she brings a bunch of salmon up in there, and they got a lot to eat, and they get a little bit more time to grow, that really could do some good.
So I want to make sure I heard you correctly. They're talking about going to a 15-inch size limit on brookies? Yeah.
Pretty sure that's what it is.
Well, and I say that'll change things, because if you get enough pressure on that river and people are actually keeping those, 8-9-inch fish, and they're not going to be able to, that's going to create a trophy fishery, it would seem to me.
I think, and that's, I'm not sure that it's a bad thing, or...
No, I'm not either.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. I'm thinking this is going to be a trial thing, to see how it goes. I don't know. I'm re-looking at this again just to make sure that I got this right.
Because I can't even imagine a 15-inch brook trout. I mean, to me, that from my frame of reference, that's That's a hog.
Well, there are some in the Lower Peninsula. You know, and there are some super secret places that are stocked with brute stock in the Lower Peninsula. I mean, I will throw that out there to some people. I'm not going to go into any details.
So if I ask you where or GPS coordinates or something, you're not going to tell me?
Oh, I mean, I would tell you, but not on the air.
Well, you would tell me, but they wouldn't be accurate.
No, I would tell you where it's at. I mean, it's actually information that's out there, you know, for you to get. You just got to know how to sift through, you know, the DNR information to figure out where these fish are stocked at.
Yeah.
And you know, there are some ice fishing opportunities for them up in this area, and there are some, you know, some really good, you know, lakes that have these in them, and they're fantastic. They're managed as trophy lakes. You're allowed one fish over 15 inches to keep, but you know, we don't keep them. We just take a picture of them and pitch them back. I mean, we've got enough fish to target to eat up here. You know, if I get guys that really want to take fish home, I talk them into a day on the angler quest instead of the trout streams. You know, it's just a limited resource. You know what I mean? It's not something that, and it's a ideal place to release fish. It's not like we're bringing them up from, you know, 100 foot plus down, and you know those fish, you know, don't seem to make it really good when you do that. So that's more of an ideal place to take fish, you know, to eat. So we do look at some conservation ideas.
Well, I tell you what's hanging up in my mind, and since you brought it up, I keep going back to it, is a big brown so aggressive they will hit the bait at the boat using a figure eight like a muskie would. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's something for you to try.
I would never dream of trying that.
Yeah, it was something I figured out 2 years ago. We kept getting them to come right to the boat, and then they'd shoot back into the brush. You'd throw it back in there. They'd come out 3 or 4 times. And I was like, you know, when I used to tiger muskie fish when I was a kid, you know, that was something that we did, and we were successful at it. So I told the guy, next time that thing comes out, do it. And he hit it.
Well, I tell you, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was fishing clear water. Lance Valentine and I were talking in the first hour of the show about, Saginaw Bay right now in some areas is crystal clear, and we're not used to that. And I know you are. The water you fish is always crystal clear. So, but we didn't have time. So maybe I'll bring you back on in the next couple of weeks, and we'll shoot the breeze a little bit more. Hey, Jim?
Yeah, sounds like a great idea.
All right. In the meantime, have a great opener. Good fishing to you, and we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good, Mike. You have a great day.
All right. Jim Chamberlain of Fish with Jim Outfitters, fishwithjimoutfitters.com, fishwithjimoutfitters.com. He runs an angler quest on the big water, and he fishes some of these northern Michigan inland lakes, some of the most beautiful, scenic. He's fishing in God's country. And then when I found out he also chases trout on the rivers of northern Michigan, how cool is that? We'll take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC, will join me. I'm not sure the details yet, but something about the DNR's budget, something they found out. Well, anyway, Amy will have those details. And then this week's Ask Avery segment. You heard Jim talking about Dunkin' worms. Well, I have a love-hate relationship with nightcrawlers, and that's actually the subject of this week's Ask Avery segment. And then coming up in hour number 3, Bruce DeShano of Offshore Tackle and wild game chef Dave Miner, right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us in Flint on 1330 WTRX. And you can hear us in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning Archery has been a leader in the archery industry since 1946. That's when Roland Boning invented Feral Tight. They continue to innovate, come up with new products, new gear, new ideas. for target archers and bow hunters, and this is their 75th anniversary. How cool is that? They've been around the archery world since Fred Bear was getting started. That's really something to be proud of. Check them out online at boning.com, BOHNING.com, boning.com. Congrats on a 75th anniversary to Michigan-based Boning Archery. Oh, boy. I told you in an earlier segment that I renewed my MUCC membership. I actually used the promo code Mike, all caps, and I made a donation above and beyond that because I believe in what MUCC is doing. There are a lot of great conservation groups out there, and I try to support all of them that I agree with, but I really agree with MUCC, and I'm proud to be a member. Amy Trotter is the executive director of MUCC, and she joins us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Amy, welcome back. How are you?
Hi, good. Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. I don't want to run out of time, so let's get right into it. Your CIO, Nick Green, tells me there's some information you want to get out about what? The DNR's budget?
Yeah, so this is not only spring and walleye season and everything else, but it is also budget season here in Lansing, and it's usually pretty boring, but there's a few interesting things happening that I just want to run through, and this is really only the start of the process. The governor proposes back in February, and this is the first indication of what the legislature is going to do with some of those proposals. So first off, MUCC and our other conservation partners have been talking a lot with lawmakers about investing in renewable energy to fuel our state's fish hatcheries. Our hatchery system actually accounts for about 15% of the DNR's total energy budget. So looking at this energy and if we could convert it to a renewable source, that's both good for the environment, but it's also going to be more cost effective in the long run. So there was a proposal to put $2 million towards this project to make our fish hatcheries more energy efficient and on solar energy. And the House did not include that, but the Senate did. So it's one of those areas where we'll have to wait and see as things go through the process where it will end up. But at least the Senate did agree with that proposal, and the House did not at this stage.
So this is something that you guys are pushing for, but it's too early to say if it's going to become reality or not.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. So the other thing that was interesting, which was not in the governor's proposal, but lawmakers on the House side have agreed with MUCC, deer hunters, and other groups that we need more check stations and some options for low or no cost testing for CWD in the areas that might be less of a priority for the DNR, where either we know that there is CWD there or we haven't found it yet. So they actually dropped $1 million of general fund money to specifically increase the number of check stations, and they also amended some other language that would allow the DNR to tap into some existing wildlife disease funds to increase testings in other areas outside of their priority zones. So this was not included in the Senate bill, but it is a good proposal from the House that we were pretty excited to see.
I'm glad that you folks at MUCC are there in Lansing to keep an eye on such things and to lobby for us, because this is the type of detail that if there wasn't somebody, a watchdog agency out there, we'd never know about these things. We'd never know the good and the bad.
Exactly. And then the last thing, which, is to address kind of a bad situation. There was the dam failure in Edenville and Sanford last year, and they are both the House and the Senate have agreed with all of us here in Lansing that we need to have an emergency dam safety fund, which was not part of previous budgets. So they've actually proposed seeding that with $15 million for an emergency dam safety fund. And so that is great news that there's some bipartisan support for that going forward.
Yeah, you'd think after what happened last year that nobody could be against this, I would imagine.
We hope so. So, there's lots of pressures on general fund all the time. Yeah. But, right now that seems to be a bipartisan, well-supported item.
Amy, always a pleasure. Listen, I want to plant a couple seeds in your mind. I know you're on the Wolf Advisory Committee. Let's get you back on sometime to talk about that. If you can, also want to keep up to speed on the consent decree negotiations, so please keep us in the loop on that as well, if you would.
Certainly. Lots to talk about with these things.
All right, Amy, we'll plan on doing that soon. Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC, the website MUCC.org, MUCC.org. Again, you can use the promo code Mike, all caps, and save 25% on your MUCC membership. That's either signing up for the first time or renewing. You also have the option there to make a donation above and beyond, which is what I did, because as you can imagine, a year like we've just gone through with COVID and such, money's tight, and I believe what they're doing, so I wanted to support them with my dollars as well as my words. MUCC.org. Use the promo code Mike, all caps, and you can save a few bucks. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery segment right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, AM and FM, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC, again, AM and FM, 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us in Iron Mountain on WMIQ, 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by... No. Let me rephrase this. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The way the Ask Avery segment works, this is your chance to have a direct input into the content of the show. You can send me a question, something that you would like me to answer directly, or I can pass the question along, because sometimes I can get some access to people in the DNR or whatever that you might not be able to. This week, it's a question directly to me. And by the way, the way you get these questions to me, you can email them, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's a real good way to do it, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. On the front of the Facebook page, there's a button right there that just says send an email. That's a good way to do it. Or you can hit me up on any of the social media outlets, and I probably will see it, but email is a good way to go. This week, this question has been asked me from multiple people multiple times, so I can't even nail it down to one particular person. So the question is, Avery, why don't you like nightcrawlers? I hear you say they're not allowed on your angler quest. Why is that? Are you a fishing elitist? Crawlers can be a great way to catch a variety of fish in a variety of conditions. Why no night crawlers on the angler quest? I have nothing against night crawlers in general. It's not like I am biased against that species. Especially this time of year, I have very fond memories. Again, when I was a kid, getting ready for the trout season opener, going out at night on a rainy night, a light, warm rain, with a flashlight out in the yard or across the tracks over to the football field, looking for night crawlers. I don't see people doing this much at all like we used to, but for a kid, it was an adventure in itself, looking for night crawlers. And if you've never done this, it's the strangest thing. You walk along with a flashlight pointed at the ground, slowly looking for a night crawler halfway out of the ground. But just finding them is only part of the challenge. You got to find them. You got to reach in there and grab them quick enough before they go back into their hole. And here's the tricky part. Once you get your fingers on them, they're fighting you. And they're tough little guys. And if you're not careful, if you pinch them too hard, you'll rip them right in half. I know it doesn't sound like a lot of fun, but it was. So I have fished with night crawlers a lot. I have also fished walleye with night crawlers a fair amount as well. My problem with night crawlers is as much of a joke as anything. It's kind of a private joke between me and my fishing buddies that's taken on a life of its own. I know you can catch walleye with night crawlers, and I know they can be extraordinarily effective, and I know there are days when the crawler guys will outfish me 3-1. But they're messy. I know. Avery, wash them off before you put them on the boat, and it'll take care of the mess, and it does. But I also don't like the fact that when you're fishing crawlers, you're trolling so slow. I mean, what, a mile an hour, 0.8 miles an hour, just fast enough to let the blades of that spinner flop over? That frustrates me too. I want to cover some ground. I want to be trolling along 2.5, 2.7 miles an hour, maybe 2.3, but 2.5 miles an hour. I want to cover some ground. And so the joke on the Angler Quest has been, do not bring crawlers on my boat. I'll say if I have to resort to night crawlers to catch a walleye, I don't want to catch it. Now, if I was a paid charter captain, when I would take anything I could to catch fish, but I don't have to. I would just as soon pull spoons or flicker shads or good old-fashioned Hottentots. But again, it's kind of a joke that morphed into something more. But I will tell you right now, if you are fishing with me this summer on the Angler Quest, do not bring night crawlers. And if I found out that you have snuck night crawlers on my boat, we're going to have a problem. Because some of my real good fishing buddies now, they know this and they try to sneak night crawlers on my boat. I feel like sometimes I have to check their coolers. I have to check their bags. I have not frisked anybody yet, but I'm not above it. So do not bring night crawlers on my boat. At this point, it's a matter of principle. And it's a great big joke. That's what it is. It's just a joke. It's a joke I have fun with. I have fun with my fishing buddies, and I have fun with you as well. But I will probably not be running any night crawlers on the Angler Quest. Now, if I was trout fishing this weekend in Cedar Creek like when I was a kid, you could bet I'd be dunking a nice big juicy night crawler down through there behind a split shot, watching that thing curl and wiggle and work its way through the hole and catch fish. Thank you to my friends at Security Credit Union for sponsoring each week's Ask Avery segment. Check them out online at securitycu.org, securitycu.org. When we come back, speaking of trolling, the man himself, the chairman of the boards, Bruce DeShano of Offshore Tackle, right here on Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us as we continue this celebration of the outdoor lifestyle, this hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping here in the great state of Michigan and occasionally beyond. This is something I've been doing for a long time. This is my 40th year in broadcasting. Now, I wasn't doing exclusively outdoor stuff for the entire time, but I've been doing outdoor stuff for probably 35 of those years. And over that time, I've really had a chance to work with some great people, to establish some really wonderful relationships. I mean, you know that I love to work with family-owned, Michigan-based companies. it's nice to be able to talk with the people who make the decisions rather than have to go through some kind of an intermediary and an ad agency. And I really, really don't want to work with these big corporate conglomerates that are, a company becomes successful, so they're bought out by another company, and then they're bought out by another company, and then they're bought out by another company. I want to deal with people who make things happen, people I'm comfortable with, people I'm friends with. And I'm thinking right now of offshore tackle. I've been working with offshore tackle for, 20 years, something like that. More? Probably more. Oh, yeah, more than that. Bruce DeShano started the company. And Bruce is an interesting guy. Back when in-fisherman was huge, and they're still big now, don't get me wrong, I realize this, but there was a period of several years when in-fisherman was it when it came to the fishing world. They owned the fishing world. What they said was the gospel. They had more clout, more influence in the fishing world than anybody I can think of. And at that time, they named Bruce DeShano the chairman of the boards. And that is something I have always remembered, and I always refer to him that way. More recently, Bruce was elected to the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. Think about that. I don't care what business you're in. There's probably something that is the absolute pinnacle of what you could accomplish. There's something out there that if you were given that title, given that honor, that it would be, man, this is it. And Bruce has been given that honor. These days, the company is run day to day by Nick DeShano, Bruce's son. He's doing a wonderful job. I work with Nick very closely. But whenever I can get a chance to talk with Bruce, and it isn't as often these days, I will jump on that opportunity. And guess what? He's available now, and he joins me on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Bruce DeShano, welcome back to the Outdoor Magazine show. How are you?
Just great, Mike. I was just thinking the other day that you and I hadn't talked in a while, and you must have heard me.
We're on the same wavelength, my friend. So what have you been up to?
Well, I've been having fun. Nick's doing all the hard stuff, and I actually just got back from Guatemala sail fishing again. We went in December, and we had just had an awesome time. It's hard to beat 7, 8, 9 foot of fish 20 feet from the boat jumping up in the air, and there's just a beautiful fish, and it's all catch and release on the sailfish. You just don't want to get caught with a dead sailfish. I mean, they really protect them down there, and that's why we catch so many. We had 35 or 36 sailfish that we actually released in 3 days.
Wow.
So just a beautiful place. We're already talking about another trip. So,
Bruce, what's it like to hook into a fish of that size, a saltwater fish of that size? I mean, it's got to be a fight.
Well, and we fight them both with spinning rods and with the level wines, 30-pound mono on the level wines and 50-pound braid on the spinning rods. And the biggest thing with a sailfish, that's the fastest fish in the ocean. They've been clocked at 68 miles an hour, and they're just unique. You'll have the rod and a line going straight out behind the boat, and the fish will be jumping 100 feet to your right, and you don't realize that's your fish. You can't even catch up to them. Wow. But they're just gorgeous, and to have them close when you're getting ready to release them and have them jump up. We actually had one, we had to push his bill off the boat. He was banging on the side of the boat up above his gills. I mean, he was, a third of the way above the gunnel of the boat, and one of the boat guys was pushing his bill so he didn't jump in the boat. It was just, you pay attention when you're fighting one.
Oh, yeah, I got to believe. I mean, a fish of that size with a bill like that, you get him next to the boat and he's got some energy. It's an interesting situation, to say the least.
We have some videos. They're tail walking 30, 40, 50 feet over the water without ever going back down, just their tail in the water, and tremendous amount of power. And we try to bring them in. We horse them in, if you want to call it. We try to get them in as quick as we can, get them released so they're comfortable and not overly stressed. And plus, we're not catching any more fish while we're fighting that one, so we want to get another one.
Bruce, how does a guy who started a Michigan-based tackle company out in the Thumb end up chasing sailfish in Guatemala years later? I mean, how did this story all unfold for you?
Well, my father, who'll be 95 in June, took me fishing when I was 18 months old, and there you have it. I just enjoy going fishing, and I don't fish as much as I used to. And this sail fishing here, when it's my turn, there's 4 of us on the boat usually, 4 anglers. And it gets where if I get 2 or 3, I'm usually done for the day. I'll sit back, and I like to watch them jump anyway. But it's been fun. We fished, a lot of different places, and I love to hunt, of course, as you know that. And I just enjoy fishing and looking forward to getting the boat in the water here and getting Saginaw Bay to see what's going on with the new Saginaw Bay since the big flood of 2020.
I'm with you there too. I have not been out yet. I'm actually still waiting on my boat. They're waiting on the electronics on that. Everything else is done yet. But yeah, I'm anxious to get out there as well. But before we get off, I want to go back here one step. When there's this old saying that when your passion becomes your vocation, things change. Was that the case for you?
Yeah. Sometimes your fishing business gets in the way of your fishing. So, as you know, I chased the tournament trail for quite a few years, both salmon and then into the walleye when the walleye game came.
And you were very successful at it, Bruce. We
did well. I had a great team in the salmon industry, Salmon Days with Larry Hartwick and Bill Sturm and Jack Huppeluck. And we did that. Nick and I won a tournament with the Michigan Walleye Tour in, I believe it was 99, handline in the Detroit River, which I still love to do, haven't done for a few years. But then sometimes that part of it takes over. It took me a couple of years after I quit fishing tournaments to really enjoy going fishing again and just throw a lure over the side and, okay, they're hitting blue and silver, and not run around and putting blue and silver on the rest of your rods, just saying, well, I got all my fish on this one lure today, but I'm back enjoying it now. I'm loving it.
Boy, I can relate to what you're saying there about there's something to be said for going on the water with the mindset of I'm here to have fun and the fish are just a bonus.
Yes. Yes, it's about the fishing, not the fish. And I wish people at chartered boats would understand that more. So many people think that if you don't, both sides, both the captain and the clients, don't think, I have to limit out or it wasn't a good day. Well, it's a good day if you're on the water. And, if you get a good captain, if you're not a good captain, you're not going to be around long. So.
Yeah, that's for sure. Hey, Bruce, offshore tackle, the leaders in trolling technology, that's the slogan, has been for many years, and I consider that to be true. What is it about trolling in general that makes it such a productive way to catch fish?
Well, you're covering so much water. You don't need to be an expert jigger. With us with the boards, even if you're not running boards, but the fish will tell you they're on. Whereas if you're jig fishing, you look over to visit with your friend to say something, hey, did you go wherever last week? You missed that little tick of the jig. Where we're trolling, you can visit and you can take the wife and you can take a 7-year-old or my 10-year-old grandson and Ari, there's a fish on that board. Okay, and they reel it in, and I think it's more social than the isolated set up in the bow, concentrating on that where that line goes in the water fishing. And that's a lot of fun, too. But I really enjoy being able to walk around the boat if it's big enough and visit and say hi and look over. Oh, there's a fish on over there. Better get that one. Whose turn is it? So I think that's a lot of what the trolling is. And of course, we're covering a lot of water. That's the biggest thing. When on the kind of water we fish, how many 1,000 square miles just Saginaw Bay is, trying to find the fish, you better be putting some miles on.
We're talking with Bruce DeShano, the chairman of the boards of Offshore Tackle. He is the guy who started Offshore Tackle. I think it's a pretty fair bet. If you're a troller these days, you've got some offshore product in the boat. You've used offshore. You've certainly heard of offshore. I love the offshore, the OR12s with the tattle flags. That's my go-to setup, but there are a lot of other options out there. Got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, I want to talk with Bruce about where these products came from, how to use them, and more coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ 1090 AM and in Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Speedy Blaze. Speedy Blaze is a safe, clean, water-resistant, insect-resistant alternative to firewood. It's made from recycled hardwood. Safe to cook over. We had some folks over to the house, some family over to the house last weekend, and I made a Speedy Blaze fire on the patio in our solo stove, and it was beautiful. It burns hot, it burns clean, and it burns right down to an ash. No residue, nothing left, no cleanup at all. Michigan-based, family-owned company. You know I love that. Check out the website, speedyblaze.com, speedyblaze.com. Speaking of Michigan-based, family-owned companies, Offshore Tackle, the website offshoretackle.com, offshoretackle.com. We also record a monthly Offshore Tackle podcast as well. I'm talking with Bruce DeShano, the chairman of the boards, the man who started Offshore. And Bruce, if I remember right, you started with one single downrigger release for the salmon folks.
That's what it was, a little alligator clip. We glued a rubber pad on with a hot glue gun, and I used to carry my whole company. I had the little OR1 downrigger release, which is still quite popular today. And then we've branched from there that we got 40 products now, I guess. The little tuning tool is probably one of our latest, and we think one of our best products for catching fish, because people don't tune their baits. They come out of the package tuned. I won't argue with anybody that says that their baits are tuned out of the package. But you bounce a walleye or a salmon or a lake trout around the floor of your boat a couple times, that lure is going to be out of tune. And this tool, instead of a pair of pliers or your teeth, which your dentist would love, because that's $300-400 a pop there, it'll bring it back into tune and keep it there. If you see the eye move when you're using your pliers, you've bent it too much and you're in trouble.
I'm going to disagree with something here, though, Bruce. I've had a lot of baits that right out of the box would not run worth a darn.
Yeah. Well, I just don't want to get in a fight with the ones that say they do. So
I gotcha. I understand. But yeah, so I'm saying, don't assume that your baits are running right. You got to check them. You got to tune them. And I will say this about your tuning tool. Once you figure out how to use it, it's a breeze. But when you first look at it, it's kind of like, how do I use this thing?
Well, people think it's a pair of pliers, and it's not. So there's a long lip and a short lip. And you make sure after you click it that little lip, you close that right away. And the way I do it, and again, some guys let 6 foot of line out and rip it alongside the boat. I like to let about 75 feet of line out straight behind the boat and then crank it in and see if the line goes left or right. And I think you get a little more subtle idea of how the bait's running than you do just pulling it alongside. But that works fine. I've done that a lot of times right after a fish and just give it a quick jerk. But the secret is, you start out so that it doesn't make a change. You make this little click, and then you close that little top jaw again. And then once you see that you finally started to move the bait, do not tighten the jaw anymore. Then it becomes a pair of pliers. Even if it takes you 10 times, that's the way you want to do it, because you only want to move just fractions of an inch at a time, thousandths of an inch. And once you get it tuned right, I mean, we've had it on our boat, 3 identical lures one of them was catching fish, and we'd try to figure it out. And it looked tuned, so we'd really work on getting it tuned. All of a sudden, all of them are working, so it had to have been in the tuning.
Yeah. It is amazing.
Bass guys need to realize that. Bass fishermen cast and crank, and they don't realize that bouncing that big lip or square bill off the bottom will knock it out of tune. And I'm hoping we can get the bass guys to understand that it's really important for them to test and tune their baits as well.
Well, from a business perspective, the bass market's huge. That'd be a great thing to be into just from a business perspective.
Sure. Well, we're hoping with that one. That would be the place to really explode that crankbait tool, or get a bass lure company to pick it up and add it to their product line.
Yeah. Well, all right. So you started out in the salmon world. You made a jump over into the walleye world, where you're still huge. You've been in stripers. You've been in catfish. You've been in crappies. I mean, you guys don't hesitate to spread your wings at all, do you?
Well, we want to look at what's there. I've looked at the saltwater, and as a rule, they run too fast for us. So one nice thing about that is we can go down there and just relax and enjoy ourselves, and we don't have to invent a new product for them. But the catfish amazed us. Nick has been really grabbing that one, and I was surprised at how they fish for them. They'll anchor and then just drop their baits down in a hole, especially flatheads. Like flatheads in the Saginaw River, they're in that same place. If you catch one, he'll be right back to that hole, and he'll live there his whole life. So they will find these holes or these logs or something that's on the bottom, and that cat will live there. And they're running a planer board, so now they can cover that whole area. And our big board, our new SST board, they're running like a pound of weight and a half a pound or more of bait, cut bait behind that. And that board will hold it in the river, where a lot of the other Lexan boards with styrofoam glued to the tops and stuff, it won't pull that kind of weight. So we've really, really surprised how well the catfish guys have taken to that SST board.
That's an interesting board because I've played with it. I've tried the crappie boards. I've tried the OR12s. I've tried the SST Pro Mag board. But that OR12, for what I do, I mean, it just fits everything and seems to do everything so well that's my go-to setup.
Yeah. But see, and I'm the other way. I'm with the mini board.
Really? Tell me about that. Tell me about that.
Well, I'm fishing the east side of the bay mostly, or even Wildfowl Bay, which until the weeds get bad, you can fish that in the mid-June. And I'm running 20, 30 feet back with a crankbait. Flicker shad or some of my old stuff. I got lures that have never seen water that I've had for 30 years. So I dig all my old stuff out. But the little mini board, for me, it's just a quick snap, and it's back behind the boat, the same way we're fishing a 12 now. And I'm not going that far out. I'm not running. Usually I've only got one other person or two at the most in the boat, so we can run a half a dozen out to the side, and it's just light and quick, and I just enjoy the heck out of the mini. And we did that crappie for a few years, and we really got used to realizing how much weight you could pull with the mini board. And we run 1 ounce tadpoles and a spoon behind it at 2.8 to 3.2. So it's my go-to board, and that's what's nice with offshore. We don't give you a board and say this is the way it is. You have to run it through this wire in the back and all this stuff. If you ask 10 professional anglers the best way to run the board, you'd get 12 different answers, I think. Everybody's tuned it different. Some guys like the snapper. Some guys like the Sam's release, which we purchased from another company because it's a good release. And I like the orange the way they come, right out of the box, other than adding a tattle flag. The orange clip on the front, the red with the pin in it. Make sure you get the line behind the pin, because if it falls off, it only fell off because you didn't put the line behind the pin. And then pop that loose and treat it just like the mini. You let the fish take it out of the spread, bring it right up the middle. In fact, I'm hoping to get an invite on your New Angler's Quest when it comes in. And
well, you've got an open invitation there. You know that. I mean, that would be nothing but fun. And you were talking about the different ways to run the OR12. When I record each month's offshore podcast, and I talk with somebody who's a troller, I always ask them that question: how do you set up your OR12s? Because it's interesting for me to hear, the different variations. Bruce, before we let you go, though, before I run out of time, one last question. COVID has been an interesting year for everybody in business, for manufacturers, distributors, or whatever. How has it affected you guys? I mean, your products are made here in this country, but I'm hearing there's a shortage of everything. Has that affected you guys as well?
Yes, but the sales have been great because people were sitting home and they went fishing. We didn't outlaw people from fishing. Well, we did for a little while. But
we tried.
Yeah, and our biggest problem has been the people that supply us with most of our stuff is actually Michigan made, not only just U.S. made, but they've had trouble getting people to come back into work. We've actually had a company sneak in and run a night's worth of product for us so that we could try to catch up on orders and things. So our biggest problem has been we got to go back to work. We got to quit paying people to stay home. We paid our people while they worked through this whole thing, and some companies really, the outdoor industry has done extremely well. And some industries and some of my favorite restaurants in the area here are gone, and I really feel bad for the way this was handled, and I'll lose some friends if you and I get talking about how I feel about this.
Yeah, well, we're not going to go down that road.
We're doing good, Mike.
I'm glad offshore's still here. I'm glad offshore's doing well. What I tell people, anybody, if you're looking for any kind of hunting or fishing gear these days, if you find it, or if you think you're going to need it this summer and you find it now, buy it now. Buy it when it's in front of you, because we don't know what these supplies are going to look like later.
It's so hard getting resupplied, and the costs are going up. Of course, fuel's back up. And, if you don't think that fuel's important, that we have to have oil, just go through and see what you use that's petroleum-based. From the steering wheel you got your hands on to the shoes you're wearing to your hair dryer. Most of that stuff is petroleum-based, all your plastics and nylons. And so we need our fuel. We need to go fishing, though.
We do need to go fishing. Bruce, listen.
Crazy cold weather.
Always a pleasure. I got to let you go. Let's do this. Let's you and I get out and fish some of that skinny water on Saginaw Bay, and just forget about everything else, but going out there and having a good time.
You got it. My boat or yours. We'll be in touch.
Sounds good. Bruce DeShano, the chairman of the boards of Offshore Tackle, offshoretackle.com, offshoretackle.com. When we come back, a few more comments I want to make, and then we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner. That's right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Tawas on WIOS 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. You can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC 95.3 FM. I'm sorry, 660 AM, 95.3 FM. I got a little behind here. You can hear us in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. And in Saginaw on WSGW AM and FM, 790 AM, 100.5 FM. I am in the studios of WSGW right now. This is where I record the show. Although there is a poster behind me that has the Outdoor Magazine logo. And for 3 hours every week, I'm calling it the Outdoor Magazine studio. Charlie Root in here with me doing a wonderful job, as always. Charlie multitasking today, trying to balance about 4 different balls in his arms at the same time, juggling these balls. And doing a great job. A segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Wilds Plumbing and Heating. From plumbing, heating, air conditioning, sump pumps, cleaning your ductwork, you name it. Everything to keep you warm, dry, cool if it's summertime, comfortable in your house. The folks at Wilds can take care of it. What's our next project with them? I'm going to have them come over and do a air conditioning. Although I guess we don't have to worry about that right now, right? But in the next few weeks, they'll come over and do a pre-air conditioning tune-up on the system. And I'm also going to have them come back and do some ductwork cleaning. We did some work in the house with some remodeling and drywall and stuff. And you know what that drywall dust is like. It gets absolutely everywhere. So I'm going to have them come back over and I think clean out the ductwork as well. I mean, everything to keep the mechanics of your house running smoothly. The folks at Wilds can take care of it. WildsPlumbingandHeating.com. That's WildsPlumbingandHeating.com. Enjoyed the conversation with Bruce DeShano of Offshore. Known Bruce forever. Absolutely forever. I mean, I remember the early days when I first started working with Bruce. We were, I don't remember why we were down there, sitting on the shore of Lake Erie, sitting at a picnic table underneath a pavilion type thing. It was a day that was too windy to fish. And just talking about the industry, and it was really early on for me and fairly early on for him. He was talking about the boards, how they came about, where they wanted to go, branching into the walleye industry, because at that time he was new in the walleye fishing world. Nick was just a kid. So I've got some history with those people, and I like that. I like dealing with people that I have history with. Oh, so what else is going on? This weekend is the trout opener statewide, walleye opener in the Lower Peninsula. I will be sitting in a turkey blind. I do not have my bird yet. Opening day, I did call in 7 jakes. And I got a decoy like 8 yards in front of me because, again, I'm hunting with a recurve bow, so I need to have it up close and personal, and I felt like those jakes were in the blind with me. I seriously thought about taking one of them. I tell you, from that close at ground level, they're pretty good size. I mean, they dwarfed my decoy. You forget just how big these birds are until you're right up next to them and at eye level. If that situation presents itself again, will I shoot a jake? I certainly have nothing against it. It is a legal and ethical target. It's kind of like shooting a spike buck. It's completely legal. It's a trophy if you want it to be. If you want to pass, that's fine too. I don't know. If it was late in the season and I had a flock of jakes come in front of me, I would probably take one. I don't think this weekend I would. But again, and nothing against it. If you shoot a jake, God bless you. There's the school of thought that anything with traditional archery gear is a trophy. And I can't disagree with that. That's for sure. We'll see. What else is going on? Well, I need to get the turkey so I can start concentrating on walleye fishing, but I'm not in a great rush yet because we're still waiting on the Angler Quest. They are waiting on the Garmin electronics. That's what's holding us up at this point, but there's a shortage of everything in the outdoor industry right now. Speaking of the outdoor industry, if you go to outdoorpregame.com, I've been telling you all along how you could get the Wraith 270 see-through ground blind, which I absolutely love. Once you hunt out of a ground blind that you can see through, it changes everything. The game can no longer sneak up on you, unless, of course, you're looking down, lighting a cigar like I was when those jakes came in on me. Anyway, now at Outdoor Pregame, every piece of gear on that website is now eligible for the promo code Mike20. So it's not just the blind, the Wraith blind. It's the and I don't have it in front of me, but it's the Descender, the tree stand safety harness. There are several other products on there. So at outdoorpregame.com, if you see something on there you like, if you use the promo code Mike20, you can get a real deep discount on those. And coming up here in a couple of months, we've got something more coming up with Primal products and a way for you to save some money and pick them up as well. In preparation for turkey season, I went out and got my licenses. I bought the all species fish. I bought my base license. I bought a combo deer tag, which I will never fill both tags. I bought my turkey tag, $91. I consider that to be a tremendous value. 25 cents a day is what that works out to. So don't talk to me about how you think our hunting and fishing licenses are too expensive. how the DNR is taking advantage of you because they're charging these rates. Well, the DNR didn't set those rates anyway. I mean, what are you going to do in the outdoors for 25 cents a day that you're going to enjoy as much and you can do every day as hunting and fishing? There's nothing. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. So glad to have you along with us. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. This week we're looking at the fact that Reader does everything for your property. Like a one-stop shop, they can take care of everything. For example, tomorrow at my house, the Reader guys will be out to open up the sprinkler system, which also opens up our backyard fountain that we had the guys from Reader put in. They were there last week to do a spring cleanup. I'll tell you, they take care of everything. If you want them to come in and take care of absolutely everything from the pruning of your trees to the lawn maintenance, they can do that. In my case, it's kind of a blended thing. I like to mow the yard. I do it for the exercise, so I take care of that, but pretty much Reader does the rest of it. Whatever you want them to do, they can come up with a plan that can suit your needs. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com. That's REDER, readerlandscaping.com. If you've been with us before, and if you have, thank you. I appreciate it. If you're new to the show, I thank you as well. But you should know that we wrap up each week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner. And guess what? He's here with us once again. David, welcome back.
How are you, Michael? I'm doing just fine.
I'm doing great. Have you been out turkey hunting at all, Dave?
No, it's just been really hectic, but I still got time.
Oh, how long is your season?
Till the end.
Oh, so you got a lot of time. You're like me. You got till the end of May.
Yeah. Have you been out?
I have. I've been out 3 times as of the time we're recording this. I had a flock of 7 jakes in front of me, heard a few gobbles, but I have not had a close encounter with a big bird yet.
I had to stop for a big bird, a nice long here in my driveway, and he stood there and looked at my truck.
Oh, they do that when we're not hunting them, and they do it just to make us look foolish and feel silly.
Inadequate is the word.
Inadequate's a good word. Well, listen, let's get even with them. Let's cook one of them up.
Let's cook them up. All right. This is my all-time best, hands-down favorite way to make turkey, and it would be turkey steaks au poivre, which is the pepper one, you know. And one thing I'm sure you'll agree, you can never have enough pepper in this dish.
I agree.
Okay, so we're going to need about 8 to 10 ounces of steak in a breast per person. You're going to cut them into steaks, so you can cut them across the grain. And near the end of it, like where it's kind of thinner and smaller and it narrows down, you can butterfly that, open that up so that everything would be about the same size, so that everything cooks about the same. So you need a jar of beef gravy. I would say 1 medium onion diced up real fine. And if you have access to morel mushrooms, by all means, you need about 3/4 of a pound or about 3/4 of a pound of sliced button mushrooms. A couple ounces of bourbon, a couple ounces of heavy cream, and as much garlic as you like. I would say 3 to 4 cloves for 4 portions would be just about right. So what you're going to do, you're going to take the steaks that you've cut, maybe depending on the bird size, it could be up to 1 inch thick. Put them between heavy-duty plastic wrap and pound it out with a meat mallet. What's going to happen if you don't do that, they're going to pucker up and you'll have just a large dome-shaped piece of meat. So pound it down quite thin because you're not going to ruin it any way, shape, or form. Now, on a wooden cutting board, you could take the peppercorns and roll that out on there so it's a single layer thick. Take the back of a real heavy-duty fry pan and push down to try to crush it, or you can put as much as you want in the food processor and give it them bursts, until you get it not powder form, but you want nice chunks. So take a little bit of olive oil, get a pan nice and hot. But first I would recommend take a little bit of bourbon, which we said a couple, put it in a pan, put the steaks in there, and push on both sides all of this crushed pepper into the meat. You want to push it down real, real hard so all of it doesn't fall off. Let that set about 10 minutes or so. And kind of, if you have enough bourbon on there, you want to let it drain down a little bit so it's not going to flare up so much. So in a real nice hot pan, very hot pan, you're going to put a little bit of olive oil and brown the meat on both sides. Take it out. Then you're going to take the garlic and the onions and the mushrooms and start to saute that, stir saute it. Then you could add the bourbon once you get that rolling, add the beef gravy, get that up to a nice rolling boil, taste it. And if it's to your liking, put it in the meat back in, put it in a oven at 350 degrees. And if you don't have a big enough pan, you could put it in some sort of a casserole, put the sauce over the top of this and bake it in 350 degrees until it's tender. And it might take up to an hour, depending on the age of that old bird there. Then at the very end, you're going to take some heavy cream, mix into it, so it kind of fluffs it out a little bit, gives it that velvety look, that we're looking for eye appeal. And it should be about as tender as anything, because you should be able to fork cut this, without really needing a knife, because you've pounded it out, you've cooked it a long time. Just a killer way, my very favorite. I like the fruit ones that we've done in the past also, but to me, this brings up the flavor of that wild bird like nobody's been.
Well, anything with a poivre has me sold. Wild game chef Dave Miner, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show. Thank you for that, David. We do appreciate it. And thank you for listening. If you weren't listening, there'd be no reason to do the show. And then I'd be, I don't know, what would I do? What would I do? Check out the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can reach me by email, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I hope you get into the woods or on the water this week. In the meantime, talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.